Thank you for having me.
So first question I have is, why are you running?
So that's a very easy question for me to answer, Shelley. And, not many people have asked me that thus far, but I'm running to be the next DA of Fulton County because I believe that the citizens of Fulton County deserve someone who is going to, a couple of things, fight for their safety, restore integrity and public confidence back into the office, and essentially advocate for the highest level of justice, at the highest level for justice to be done. I believe that the citizens here in Fulton County also deserve to pick who their next DA is going to be, and they don't need to be told who it's going to be. Right now, we have a district attorney who essentially is not doing her job, and instead victims are being languished and justice is being delayed, not just for the victims here, but for their families as well. We deserve an ethical, moral, and honest DA who's committed to the job and the will of the people, and I believe that I am that person.
So you're running, against DA Fani WIllis. Are you concerned at all that as a Republican candidate that Fulton County went 70-30 for Biden? Does that concern you at all? That on the political sides, there are not a lot of Republicans in Fulton County?
So it doesn't concern me at all, and I think there are more Republicans than we realize in Fulton County, and this race to me is not political. It's not about being a Republican or a Democrat. Yes, it's a partisan race, but at the end of the day, we haven't had a Republican really run in this seat in a very long time, and clearly we have seen from DA WIllis and then, Paul Howard that currently the Democrat DAs are not getting the job done. And Fulton County, like I said, they haven't had an option for a Republican to run in this seat before. So the 70-30 for Biden here doesn't really concern me. Of course, I'm taking that into account, and that is a factor. And that was a factor in my decision to run because I don't want to waste resources. I don't want to waste anyone's time. But I feel strongly that statistic is not going to be that way for this race because this race is much bigger than Republican or Democrat, and it's much bigger than Fulton County.
A couple times you had said, wasting resources, not protecting victims or caring for victims. Can you give us an example of that, of wasting resources and maybe not taking victims very seriously by prosecuting many cases that are sitting and languishing?
Yeah, absolutely. So instead of requesting DA WIllis had a special purpose grand jury to investigate former President Trump, right? And instead of doing that, she could have requested a special grand jury to investigate the conditions at the Fulton County Jail that led to the death of 10 people last year. Additionally, money that could be spent on rape kits for more than 4,000 sexual assault kits being stuck in years backlog, or requesting money to be spent on raises for her current staff that are handling, and I'll give you this statistic, 4,000 pending felony indicted cases and almost 14,000 unindicted felony cases that are pending in Fulton County. She authorized the use of funds to investigate and indict other matters that are maybe not as serious and as grave as the victims in the cases I just mentioned. And that I think that the backlog and the money that is being used for certain cases now could be spent on actual criminal prosecution. And I don't say that loosely. I think that Fulton County is not safe anymore. And the reason it's not safe anymore is because we have violent criminals getting out of jail. We have, there are a handful of innocent people sitting in jail. You are innocent until proven guilty. But the problem is that many of the people sitting in jail and many defendants, they are not getting their day in court. And that is because the resources that are being used for other very highly public politicized cases could be used for those cases instead. And that is one thing that is not partisan. It's not Republican versus Democrat. And essentially, Shelley, I'll tell you, this is not right versus left. This is right versus wrong, and I feel very strongly about that.
So basically, when you say a highly publicized case, there's a view and some evidence that DA Fani WIllis is taking advantage of this publicity for her own benefit, not necessarily financial benefit, but her own benefit politically. How do you feel about that?
the office of the DA and the integrity of the office itself, not necessarily her office, but it should never be used as a political stage. It should never be used that way. You should never bring politics like this into the courtroom. And I think that that's what's been happening the last couple of years. And because of that, it has diminished the public confidence in our legal system and in our justice system. And that should never happen. You don't see this happening in every other county here in Georgia, right? You see this happening primarily in Fulton County. And being the largest county in Georgia and being I've born and raised in Fulton County. I've lived here my whole life. The decision to run for this seat has made it that much easier because I've seen the decline over the years. I've seen the injustices that have been occurring. I've seen the office being politicized. And I think that, like I said, our voters deserve a choice to not let that happen and not let that continue.
We talked about the Trump interference case. You have been described in media accounts as you worked for former President Trump in the White House counsel's office. You represented one of the 18 that have been indicted. How do you navigate if you win or when you win this race? How do you navigate that case?
So, if I win, I would recuse myself from that case because I have a conflict of interest in that matter. And I think that is something that is very important for people to know because I'm not going to comment on what Judge McAfee isn't doing in that case. I can't do that. That would be disrespectful to the office. It would be disrespectful and it would be unethical, essentially. And I would recuse myself from that case. And I think that people need to know that when you have a conflict of interest in a certain matter, you should recuse yourself from that case. And right now we have, like I said, a DA that isn't recusing herself from a case right now and has made herself a conflict of interest in this case. I know that case is in, number one in the media right now. Everyone's waiting on certain decisions to be made. But at the end of the day, Shelley, I would recuse myself from that case because I know when I have a conflict of interest and I would make sure that I uphold my oath and I owe that to the citizens of Fulton County who vote for me. And if I win, I owe that to every single citizen, whether I had their vote or not.
And so just to be clear, you're talking about recusing yourself immediately upon winning from the Trump election interference case.
If I have a conflict of interest in a case, I would recuse myself from that case. And because of working for a defendant in that matter, I would recuse myself from that case. And that is what I would hope every single attorney would do if they were in my shoes, because that is the ethical way to handle this.
Give me you're on an elevator with a couple Fulton County residents, and they're going to be going to the polls close to May 21st when the election day is. What's your elevator pitch to those voters? And quickly.
I would tell those voters that you have a choice and you deserve a choice. And because I entered this race, you have a choice. And a selfless leader is an effective leader. And right now we don't have that kind of leadership in Fulton County. I think that Fulton County deserves a leader who fights for what is right and makes decisions based on the greater good of the county and not personal decisions based on political motivations. And I said it before, in this segment, Shelley, but this is not about right versus left. It is about right versus wrong.
Great talking to you, Attorney Courtney Kramer. You're running a Fulton County District Attorney against Fani WIllis, and there's a third candidate in there. And we appreciate you coming on the Shelley Winter Show, and I really appreciate you being your first interview. I really do.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Shelley.
God bless.